So it's a real honor to be here speaking about inclusive growth and how it can help our economy reach its full potential. So before I start, I'd like to commend the Public Policy Forum for its leadership on this issue and for bridging the gap between the private and public sectors. Too often, these discussions are happening in silos, so I'm happy to be here today to engage in a dialogue together on this very important topic. Now in its third year, the Growth Summit continues to be a key venue to discuss issues impacting our economy and our competitiveness. CIBC has been engaged in this event since its inauguration in 2016, when our CEO, Victor Dodig, addressed the challenges of moving beyond 2% growth. Some of you may recall Victor's remarks focused on harnessing innovative technologies to enable growth in underperforming sectors, not only in the tech space, but across our economy. So when I think of inclusive growth, the topic today, I also look at it through a similar lens. There is an accepted need for improved labor productivity across all sectors in order to secure long-term, sustainable economic growth. At the same time, there are also large groups underrepresented in the workforce, and they can bring greater value through their inclusion and through diversity. So as business leaders, we need to address this head on. So today I want to touch on three groups that we all need to do a better job at supporting to drive inclusive growth: women, Indigenous people, and persons with disabilities. Women's participation in the labor market and promotion into more senior roles is a key component in capitalizing on our economy's full potential. We all know very well that from both research and experience that diversity in executive ranks and in the boardroom strengthens companies, leads to better decision-making, and makes them much more successful. So if that's the case, then why is progress on executive hiring so slow? Why are women's salaries still lower than men's? And why do over 1/3 of the TSX-listed companies still have no female representation on their boards? There are many underlying reasons, but let's consider a few of the salient ones and the ways that they can be addressed. Number one, ownership of the inclusion mandate needs to be broad-based. Many executives don't see it as their personal responsibility or a business imperative. We need to link leaders' performance metrics, their compensation, to diversity and talent management outcomes. Number two, people are often hesitant to admit that unconscious biases and stereotypes still exist about the roles that women can and should play in the workforce. Beyond linking gender diversity outcomes to performance results, it's important to provide unconscious bias training for employees and leaders to get past our embedded ways of thinking. And number three, if we want more women in underrepresented roles in fields like financial services or technology, we have to ensure that more women graduate from STEM programs. And on that topic, I think it's worth recognizing the federal government's recent commitment in Budget 2018 to support projects that address challenges women face in finding STEM employment. So overall, we've moved the needle, but we've got more work to do. I want to shift gears and speak about employment and access to capital, issues that face our Indigenous people. This population is growing at 4 times the national average. They are an important part of our future success. The federal government is leading a national effort to improve the relationship with Indigenous people through the Truth and Reconciliation process. As the Commission recommended, we must address the economic disparity through equitable distribution and access to jobs and education. As a first step in addressing these issues is increasing the participation of Indigenous people in the labor market. In 2017, a report showed that the employment rate amongst working-age Indigenous people is over 12% lower than the non-Indigenous population. They're also less likely to work in management positions and in business administration. With respect to finance and access to capital, this population faces significant barriers that other groups don't. Some of them are inherent in the legal system, such as controls over land and housing ownership, and others are related to education and financial literacy. From the business perspective, there are many things that we can do in our sector. Companies can establish diversity and inclusion hiring strategies to help ensure that the underrepresented populations have access to jobs within their firms, and that we create environments where they can succeed. With respect to Indigenous people, we actually have seen progress in certain sectors, like natural resources, but in financial services, and although CIBC and other Canadian banks are making progress, there is a longer road ahead. Secondly, because we know Indigenous businesses and individuals struggle to access capital, financial institutions need to change how we serve them. That means updating our lending guidelines to account for the structural barriers that these populations face. It means developing specific financial literacy programs. It means rethinking how we can secure mortgages to create a more dynamic, on-reserve housing market. So a lot of work has been done in recent years, but again, there's more work to be done. And finally, I'd like to talk about the importance of removing employment barriers for people with disabilities. Last year, we announced a partnership with Magnets. It's a new jobs network, and it's focused on individuals facing barriers to employment, including those with disabilities. When we launched the partnership, we released a poll, and it showed that 37% of working-aged Canadians living with a disability, so almost 40%, are not currently employed. Another worrisome outcome from that poll is that 1/4 felt that their most recent job or role did not fully leverage their capabilities and their qualifications. So recognizing this, CIBC developed new hiring practices that deal with inclusion and diversity and the need for specific workplace accommodations. And doing so, we succeeded in bringing on new team members with disabilities last year, and we're on track to bring on another 500 this year. So early results have been promising. It has helped expand our thinking as a team. It has helped us bring new points of view to the table, and has helped us make better decisions. So as I said at the outset, engaging our entire labor force is essential to achieving our full potential. Both the public sector and the private sector have a clear role to play. And this is the value of forums like we're here today, today's summit, bringing together these groups to support the growth in our country. Thank you. It's now my privilege to welcome to the stage Katie Telford, a leader in advancing inclusive growth. As the Chief of Staff to our Prime Minister, she's played an integral role and continues to do so in advancing the government's commitment to gender parity, as well as on Indigenous reconciliation and on many other files. Please welcome to the Growth Summit, Katie Telford.